Welcome to this third module for Spirits on Fire. Let's begin as we usually do, by taking just a few minutes to settle in and to become focused. So to do this, I invite you to close your eyes and to quiet your mind and body. As best you can, put aside any thoughts and simply settle into the stillness. Pay attention to your breathing. Remember that having come from the hand of God, God's very breath is in and through you. And what is it that you desire as you begin this third module? Express your desire to God in any way that is comfortable for you. Open your eyes now and let's continue. I want to briefly review where we are. The modules that we are offering for your reflection, your conversation, and your integration into life and ministry are briefly outlined, as you know, in that circular diagram that you have that is both in your journal and in your binder. And as I mentioned before, the diagram is really simply an attempt to visually summarize the 6 core values or attitudes of heart or pathways that shape how we go about giving flesh to the mission of unity. They are the pathways that advance unity in the tradition of the Sisters of St. Joseph. This way of doing the work of unioning comes from the writings of our Jesuit founder, Jean-Pierre Médaille. None of the pathways or core values stand alone. Neither do they exist in any priority order. Life experience teaches us that they are lived as an integrated whole in our living and working in ways that foster or nurture union. Taken as a whole, they become the lens that colors our perspective, or we could say our worldview in life. And they become the lens that shape the actions that flow from this worldview or perspective of ours. Over time, and with personal reflection and God's grace, we grow into these attitudes of heart that become our way of responding to the basic call we all have to draw all into one. In the first module, we reflected on the pathway to unity that we name inclusive love. That attitude of heart that truly sees all people and indeed all creation as one. We noted that the more we come to see as God sees, the more we will desire to relate with the same inclusive and all-embracing ways of our creating God. We will recognize that what we think separates us from others, or from creation for that matter, what we think separates us is really an illusion. And so we will do all that we can to foster the inherent wholeness that God desires for us and all creation. We will do all that we can to foster that inherent unity that already exists within all creation. In the second module, Phyllis helped us reflect on an attitude of heart that opens us to being emptied of whatever's getting in the way of deepening union and wholeness within ourselves, with others, with the dear neighbor, or with God. Now, in this third module, we turn our attention to all-permeating love. When we were gathered together, we considered that there exists within all of creation an inherent energy, a life force that stimulates unfolding and deepening wholeness. It's a life-giving and directional energy that scientists recognize as having been dynamically present from the first moment that the universe came into being. People of faith acknowledge this all-permeating, life-giving energy as divine love, as God, the source and sustainer of all creation. We believe that the life-giving, unifying breath of God's Spirit pulses through and permeates everything. Divine love breathes through every encounter, every activity, every element, every event, every situation, always desiring to enliven, to invigorate, to motivate, to inspire and empower, moving all toward greater union and expanding wholeness. There is no place God does not desire to be, weaving all into one. In the tradition of the Sisters of St. Joseph, then, we recognize that all encounters, all events, all circumstances, situations present opportunities for fostering deepening union with God, within oneself, with the dear neighbor, including creation. Every encounter and all aspects of life hold the potential for something more to emerge. And let's not forget, the same breath of God that has been evolving all of the universe, all of creation, and all life within it for billions of years also is what permeates you, permeates me. We humans are an integral part of the evolving movement going on in our world, in our universe. It is in and through the concrete circumstances of your life, my life, in and through the encounters we have day by day, in and through our relationships, in and through the movements of your heart, of my heart. It's in and through all of this that God moves and breathes and leads and inspires and lures. It is in and through all of this that God invites us to enter into the divine movement in ways that weave all into one. And then after God invites us, lures us into the movement, God waits. God waits for our free response. The choice is always ours, whether to go with the movement or not. God waits for our free response. As we said when we were together, this world of ours is not finished yet. It's still a work in progress. You and I are not finished yet. We are still works in progress. Each and every day, you and I are presented with fresh opportunities for saying yes to being God's co-laborer, collaborator, co-creator, in ushering in new life, in healing whatever is separating and dividing, and in drawing all into one. In the second module, you might recall Phyllis saying about self-emptying, everything has the potential to draw forth from us fuller love and life. For nothing is outside God and God's love. Everything has the potential for drawing forth from us fuller love and life, because nothing is outside of God and God's love. This perspective we are both describing is what prompts us to stay at the table, as we said, when differences arise or when the going gets rough. We don't easily walk away or separate ourselves from challenging situations or challenging people, for that matter. Instead, we desire to do all we can to preserve right relationship, to practice deep listening, and to draw on the gifts or the skills that we might have that help in resolving conflicts or difficulties. We honestly and courageously face whatever it is within oneself that needs to be put aside or emptied so that we can move toward the other. And all along the way, we keep noticing how God might be moving, not only within the situation, but within me, luring toward greater life and wholeness. So we keep listening for the next right step. Now we're going to talk more about this kind of noticing and listening for the next right step in another module, so I won't say anything more about that now. But I do want to say something about those painful times when everything in us, individually or collectively, wants to cry out and ask, so where are you, God? Can't you see what's happening? This isn't right. Do something. Again, I go back to something Phil said. At the heart of the world's suffering is the place where God loves to act. At the heart of the world's suffering is the place that God loves to act. It is in exactly these painful, deeply painful situations that a deep yearning stirs in us. We notice that we yearn for something more. We yearn for something more to emerge. We yearn for something more life-giving and whole. This yearning that stirs deep within the human spirit is all part and parcel of the all-permeating divine energy that is luring all creation forward towards something more. toward deepening and expanding life and wholeness. This is how the unioning happens, not through the waving of some magic wand. It happens in and through us, God's co-creators, God's co-laborers. When we are able to enter into the pain and suffering of this world, be that near or far, when we can enter into that pain and suffering, not in masochistic ways or in ways that are self-victimizing, but in ways that allow light and life and wholeness to break through, that is when we move and become one with the all-permeating ways of divine love, of God. This is how we join together as God's collaborators in the transformation of the world. So the question for us isn't so much, where are you, God? Implying that we think God is absent. Rather, we look on difficult and painful situations with the belief in the all-permeating presence of God. And so we ask our creating God, what is your desire here? What do you desire here in this situation? And what is your invitation to me or to us in moving toward that desire? That's the critical question. What's your desire, God? And what is your invitation to me or to us here? Pondering this question, pondering it deeply, is what keeps us moving forward in the flow of the unioning movement of God. And again, we'll talk more about how we do this kind of listening and pondering in a future module. As we move toward the end of this video module, let me say something about this core value of all-permeating love and its implications for leading in the mission. As leaders in the mission of unity, it is vitally important that we resist reacting to people and situations. Rather, we want to respond. So it's important that we resist reacting to people or situations. Rather, we train ourselves to take time to step back and consider how we might respond in the ways of God. We might respond in the way that might be God's desire. We ask ourselves, what will advance life and goodness and wholeness here for everybody involved? What's going to advance life and goodness and wholeness here? Now, as a leader, this really requires that we practice deep listening, not only listening to the other, but also to listening, to deeply within myself, that part of myself that brings out the best in me, if you will. It really requires that I develop good self-knowledge so that I can recognize when I'm getting in the way, when my ego is getting in the way, or my agenda is pushing things forward. It requires that I do what I can to preserve right relationship in any and all situation. And it requires that I use specific skills that help in resolving conflicts or differences. Now, admittedly, these are the behaviors and the skills that we would expect from any good leader. However, what I want to emphasize here is that nurturing these behaviors and skills in ourselves, in myself, in others, is at the same time doing the work of the mission. This is putting flesh on the mission of unity. Practically speaking, this is what it looks like when we are engaged in the work of unioning. We nurture good self-knowledge, deep listening, conflict management skills, and the like, because we recognize that living in right relationship with self, with others, with all creation, with God, is at the heart of what it means, first of all, to be fully human, and what it means to be a leader in drawing all into one. Finally, I encourage you as a leader in the mission of unity to also step back from time to time to ponder the wonderfully mysterious truth that God permeates every fiber of your being. God permeates every fiber of your being. God is always breathing in and through you, whether we're conscious of it or not. God is always breathing in and through you, just as God's breath is permeating every other person and all creation without exception. Let that almost incomprehensible truth sink deeper and deeper into your consciousness, so that over time, it can eventually influence how you live and move in this world of ours. I'm going to stop right there for today. I'd like to invite you once again to close your eyes and just rest in the quiet for a moment or two and kind of pull what you've been listening to together. Now ask yourself, and maybe jot down if it helps you, your responses. But what did I hear that stirred something in me, that drew me in? What did I hear that stirred something in me, that spoke to me, that drew me in? What did I hear that I want to remember and hold on to? What do I want to remember and hold on to so I don't forget? When you turn off this video segment, I encourage you to spend some time with these thoughts. Use your journal if it's helpful. But again, what stirred? What drew you in? Can you really name why that really drew you in? Why that really spoke to you? And in terms of what you want to hold on to and not forget, why? Why do you not want to forget that? Spend some time with those thoughts. And that movement going on inside you, remember, is the movement of God. That is how God moves us forward to something more. Remember that on the website, you'll find additional questions and resources for your own personal reflection, as well as the questions that will help you prepare for your table conversation. And through all of your reflecting and your conversation, may you come to know more deeply the all-permeating love that God has for you. See you next time.